Witness has not been sworn in yet, Judge.
Raise your right hand, please, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, from the state, please.
How you doing this morning, Mr. Kubosh?
Fine.
And could you just state your name and spell it for the record, please?
I'm Felix Michael Kubosh, F-E-L-I-X, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Kubosh, K-U-B-O-S-H.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am a city council member for the last 5 years. I work for the city of Houston as a council member. I'm an elected official. And I'm a Harris County bail bondsman for the past 21 years.
Governor Mayor, can we ask that the mic be pulled up a little closer?
Yeah, can you sit a little bit closer to the microphone?
Okay.
Better?
Thank you.
So, you're a council person, you said, for 5 years?
Yes, sir.
And what area do you represent?
The entire city of Houston.
Okay.
I'm an at-large council member.
You're at large, okay. And you have another business you run as well, correct?
Yes, sir. I own a bail bonding business called Kubosh Bail Bonds.
And how long have you been doing that for?
21 years.
And just so the jury's a little bit familiar with what happens, somebody pays you a portion of a bond, you post the entire bond, and the person bonds out of jail.
That's correct.
Anytime in late February, early March of last year, do you recall ever coming into contact with the defendant, Leon Jacob?
February the 23rd, 2017 at 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay. And just so we're clear about who you're talking about, do you see this person, Leon Jacob, in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Can you go ahead and identify him by something that he's wearing?
Striped tie and a black suit with a white shirt.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that witnesses identify the defendant?
The record will so reflect.
And so could you tell the jury about the circumstances in which you came to encounter the defendant?
I had received a call from my staff that I had bonded out a doctor and that he was wanting to meet with me, which was a little unusual that I don't normally meet people that I bond out on. But I said, okay, I'll meet with him. I received another call saying he continues to call. He wants to meet with you. It's important. So I said, we'll set an appointment for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll leave my city office and I'll drive to my bonding office and I'll meet with him.
And do you recall what charge your company was involved in bonding him out on?
I bonded him out on the stalking charge, a $15,000 bond.
And you mentioned that it's not usual for you to meet with your clients. Is that because you have a lot of clients? And
I have staff who does the intakes, possibly runs the bonds, and they do the intakes, and they meet with the defendants once they get out of jail and go over what the requirements or the court orders are that they have to follow.
now, at the time that this meeting was set for you to meet with the defendant, did you have any idea going into that what the defendant wanted to meet with you about?
I had no idea what he wanted to meet about.
Okay. And when and where did that meeting take place, sir?
It took place at 1701 Lubbock Street. That's my bonding business. It occurred in my office.
And could you describe for us what happened in that meeting?
Well, at 4 o'clock, Dr. Leon Jacob came to my office. He walked through the door. He shut the door behind him, which made me feel a little odd. I don't normally have people do that. I don't ever recall anyone ever doing that. And he shut the door, and I stood up behind my desk, and he said, I'm Dr. Leon Jacob, and I told him I'm Michael Kubosh. He said, I'm here to, all I want is one thing from you. I want Zach's number.
At this point, did you have any idea who he was talking about?
No, I didn't have any idea who Zach was.
And did he give you any descriptions of this person to maybe jog your memory to see if you could recall who he's talking about?
Well, he seemed to know that I knew who Zach was. He said that he was Middle Eastern, that he was prior military, and that he had worked for the CIA, and that I knew who he was. And I told him I can't think of anybody with the name of Zach that fits that description.
Do you recall when this conversation started and when he said, all I want is one thing from you, I want this phone, or I want to contact Zach, and I know you know him. What was his demeanor like during that conversation?
He was very aggressive. He told me that he was a martial arts. He had done martial arts. He began to tell me. He finally sat down. He told me that he had done surgeries and heart surgeries in Guantanamo Bay. That he was a heart doctor, and I'm just listening, trying to size him up, trying to figure out first of all, why did he shut the door? Who is Zach? And finally I said, well, I turned to my computer, typed in Zach, trying to find out if there was anything that would pull up. Nothing came up, and I said, I don't know who you're talking about. He said, well, you know him. And I said, well, I may know him, but I don't know who he is. What number did he call you from? And he told me, so I wrote the number down, and when I stuck it in my computer, it came up that I had talked to somebody from that number on January, I believe the 6th or the 8th of 2017. That got my attention, but I didn't know who, it didn't come back to a name. I did not know who Zach was.
Okay, so he provided you, so the name Zach wasn't doing anything for you, so he provided a number to you, which you plugged into your computer, and you found a record of you having talked to somebody at the phone number he had given you.
That's correct.
But it was unclear based on the records you had on your computer who that person was.
That's correct.
Okay. Did he ever mention to you the reason why he was so insistent on finding Zach?
He told me he'd paid this man a lot of money, Zach, a lot of money to take care of this matter. And I said, well, what matter? He said, well, she can't be testifying against me, and she'll be embarrassed to me and my family. And my mother's a lawyer here in town, well-known lawyer, and this would be a great embarrassment. And she needs to go back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I said, well, sir, who are you talking about? And so I got on the computer and I pulled up the charging instrument on the stalking charge, and I said, are you talking about Megan Veracos? And he said, yes. And I said, well, sir, you can't have any contact with her, and you can't have any contact with her through anyone else.
This poses a narrative, but we have question and answer.
Certainly.
Yes, sir. You were saying something about when you learned the person he was speaking of, the problem that Zach was going to take care of. You were saying that you were telling him that per his bond agreements, I assume, that he wasn't allowed to have any contact with this person. Is that right?
Well, I felt quite confident that the judge would be upset if he knew he was making contact with Megan Veracos, since it was a stalking charge.
Did you get through the course of your conversation with the defendant, were you ever alarmed at the phrasing of things or the way that he said things about his problem with Megan?
Yes, in fact, I asked him, why are you talking to me like this? I said, you know, I'm not just a bondsman, I'm a city council member. I've taken an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution and the people of this city. Why are you talking to me like this?
Did you have any idea, or did he ever tell you the reason he felt comfortable telling you about getting rid of a witness in this stalking case?
He said that all he was so focused on was getting Zach's number. He had paid him a lot of money, and he wanted this witness, which I learned to be Megan Veracos, to not testify against him on these cases, because it would also hurt his medical license.
And did you ever provide any information to him of any kind?
I told him about the time that all this was happening. One of my staff members, John Gibbs, knocked on the door, opened the door, and he said, Councilmember, we've got to go to Kingwood with the mayor on a CIP project. And so it gave me an out to get out of there. And I was feeling very uncomfortable, because I felt like that I had just learned that something was going on that was very bad.
And I was just going to ask you that. While the defendant was telling you these things, not only about Zach and about Megan, what did you feel like? What was your perception of what was happening? Did you feel as though somehow you were becoming involved in something?
Well, I felt like, be honest with you, I felt like I was talking to the devil himself when he was talking to me. He was so aggressive. He wanted Zach's number. He knew I had it, and he wasn't going to leave without Zach's number. So all I could tell him was the number did pull up in my computer that I had contact with somebody, and if I find out who it is, I'll get back with you. And so our conversation ended. I left with John Gibbs, and I got in the car. And
after that meeting was over, did you contact anybody because of concerns that you had based on the meeting and what was said?
Yes. As soon as I got in the car,
And let me rephrase, Judge. Who did you contact and what did you tell them after the meeting?
After the meeting, I felt very alarmed by what I had just learned. And I contacted I called the chief of police. He did not answer, so I called the assistant chief of police, and I told him what I had felt like had just happened, that I had a client who felt like I had information on.
hearsay.
Well, it's not hearsay, he's saying what.
He said, but it's more in the question, I mean, it's more into a conversation than question and answer again, so let's break it up.
Yes, sir. So you called somebody to contact them about concerns you had regarding your conversation with the defendant?
Yes, I was concerned that
Yeah, try to listen to the question.
And answer specifically the question. And
Okay.
then counsel, if he wishes to, can continue to question you about those things.
yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And who was it again that you contacted?
Chief Fenner, Assistant Chief Fenner.
Who's Assistant Chief Fenner?
He's the Assistant Chief of Police in the city of Houston.
But that's what I was getting to, the Houston Police Department.
Yes.
Okay. And did you feel at all uneasy about your role in this? I mean, did you feel as though you were being somehow set up for something?
I did, and I was concerned that,
Why did you feel that way?
because the phone number was in my computer that he had given me, and for somebody to give you a 10-digit phone number and it come up in your computer when you type it in, it just didn't make sense to me. How was I getting involved in this? Why was I being involved?
And did you relay all the information to Assistant Chief Fenner?
Yes, I did.
And were you eventually put in contact with any investigators from the Harris County District Attorney's Office?
Yes, while I was with the mayor in Kingwood, I received a call from an investigator, I believe by the name of Larry, with the Major Crimes Division of the Harris County District Attorney's Office.
And did you relay the same information to that investigator that you've told the jury today?
Yes, I did.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Kubosh.
Good morning.
I have some questions for you in cross-examination. I believe we office in the same building, do we not?
No, sir.
No.
Unless you were down at the city hall.
All right, I thought you were at the Lyric Center at some point.
No, sir, I've never been
All
there.
right, I'm sorry, I apologize. I have some questions for you in cross-examination based on the information that you provided to the state and the jury heard through the course of this case, through the course of your testimony. In your conversations with Leon Jacob, it was apparent that Leon Jacob wanted Megan to go away, correct?
Yes.
And to go away specifically to Pittsburgh.
He mentioned Pittsburgh, yes.
And that was the intent, as you perceived it to be, initially, based on the conversations that he had with you, that he wanted her gone to Pittsburgh so that she would not be available for trial to testify against him, correct?
He wanted her, he didn't want her to testify against him, and he said, she can't testify against me. I want her taken back to Pittsburgh.
All right. Now, he also stated that he needed her out of here, correct?
Yes.
And you then believed, and it's your insight, as was enunciated by the prosecutor, you then took that to believe that he was talking about killing the witness associated with these assault and stalking cases. Right?
No, sir, I never made that statement.
Okay. Who was the officer that interviewed you?
On the phone, the first time,
Yes.
Counselor, his name was Larry. I can't, with Major Crimes. I don't have his full name.
And you never made the statement that you believe that Leon was talking about killing the witness and associated with the assault cases?
I never made that statement.
All right. And as far as you know, he was just having a conversation with you in order to convince Megan to get back to Pittsburgh.
He didn't want her to testify against him, and he had paid somebody a lot of money to make sure that she wouldn't be here to testify against him, and he mentioned Pittsburgh.
All right. I pass the witness. Thank you, sir.
Nothing further, Judge.
Is he to be
Excused.
Yes, sir.
Any objection for excusing the witness?
Can we approach Judge?
You may. Subject to recall, you are excused, and we appreciate your testimony. Good to see you. Next witness, please.
Judge, the state calls Officer Eddie Rodriguez.
Oh, I haven't gotten a witness list. Do you happen to have one?
I do, Judge.
Witness has not been sworn in, Judge.
Thank you. Raise your right hand, please, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we plan to break about 12:15 for lunch. Okay. All right, from the state, please.
Thank you, Judge. Could you please turn and introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
My name is Eddie Rodriguez.
And Officer Rodriguez, can you tell us what you do for a living?
I am a Houston police officer in the city of Houston.
Can you walk us through some of your training and background that you've had during your time with the Houston Police Department?
I've been on 34 years, spent about 9 years in patrol, transferred from there to the robbery division where I was a robbery detective for 13 years. Transferred from there to the criminal intelligence division where I spent 9 years doing dignitary protection for foreign dignitaries and heads of state alongside the State Department and the United States Secret Service. Transferred from there, I'm currently assigned to the technical surveillance detail for the criminal intelligence division. I've been currently doing that for about 7 years.
So is some of what you do currently with the Houston Police Department secret?
Yes.
And what's the purpose of keeping some of those things secretive?
A lot of times investigators come to us where they need to either watch a location or an individual's movements. They use technology, which we handle the technology to gain the data or evidence that they need without extended use of manpower hours. So we use technology to help us record the evidence or data that they need for their case.
So is it common for you to be called in on a case to help with, say, wiring or photography or video and that type of thing?
Yes, we do a lot of audio, video recording, tracking of assets, that sort of thing. So we wire up individuals' residences, whatever's needed. We try and compose a package for them to gain whatever data that they need.
Is it common for you all to work hand in hand with the Major Offenders Division of the Houston Police Department on investigations that they're conducting?
Yes, the Major Offenders Division is a division that does a lot of undercover operations, and they frequently call us to assist them in obtaining evidence for them.
I want to fast forward now, and I want to talk to you about March of 2017. Were you contacted by the Major Offenders Division of the Houston Police Department to help them with an investigation that they were conducting?
Yes, they came to us and said, hey, we got this case that's developing. We're going to need your help.
No problem, Judge. I'll rephrase.
All right, thank you.
Without saying what was said, did the Major Offenders Division of the Houston Police Department come to you for assistance?
Yes, they did.
And did you work with some of the officers in that division, such as Javier Duran, Frank Quinn, and those individuals?
Yes, I did.
I want to go to March the 8th of 2017, where you asked to go to an Olive Garden off of the 59 freeway.
Yes, I was.
And what was the purpose of you going to that location?
I was going to record some audio and video evidence for their case.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Officer Rodriguez, I'm going to show you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit Number 1,
Okay.
Number 2,
Okay.
3,
Okay.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Do you recognize these?
Yes,
Starting with State's Exhibit Number 1, the disc. Is that the disc that you took using your video equipment back in March of 2017?
yes it is.
And then looking at the photographs, States 2 through 10, are these photographs that fairly and accurately depict what you were viewing back in March of 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you alter these in any way?
No.
Your Honor, at this time, State offers States 1 through 10 and tenders to opposing counsel for any objection.
Thank you.
And also, does the state have an exhibit list?
We will judge.
All right.
1.
You have no objection to states 1 through 10.
And they are admitted, thank you.
And Judge, may State publish?
You may.
Exhibits 1 through 10? Okay. Starting with State's Exhibit Number 2, is this one of the photographs, one of the still images that was taken off the video that you recorded back in March of 2017?
Yes,
Now, as you're recording this from the parking lot in that area, are you familiar with the facts of the case, or are you simply just videoing what you see?
no, at this point, I didn't know anything about the case, what it was, just recording data, evidence. It's evidence, but we call it data. So it's, we turn the machines on and start recording, and this is just one of the stills that came off of that data.
Okay, and so States 2 through 10 are just some of the stills that came off of States Exhibit Number 1, which is the video that you took.
That's correct.
Once you take these items, you turn them over to the Houston Police Department as part of their investigation.
Yes,
As part of your assistance to the Major Offenders Division of the Houston Police Department, did you also assist Officer Duran in hooking him up with some technology that allowed conversations he was having with the defendant, in this case, Leon Jacob, be recorded?
yes, I did.
And did you use your experience in order to do that? You know what equipment to use at the time.
That's correct.
Did that end your involvement with this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
On the defense, please.
We have no questions, Your Honor.
And to be excused.
Yes.
No objection, Judge.
And you are excused, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Your next witness, please.
State calls Moataz Azzeh, Judge.
Witness has not been sworn in, Judge.
Raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
And make sure you speak into the microphone. All right, from the state, please.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Azzeh, could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
My name is Moataz Azzeh, spelled as Moataz. Last name is Azzeh.
And how old are you, sir?
I'm 32.
And where are you from originally?
I was born in Chicago, but I lived in Jordan when I was young, and that is where the accent from.
So you grew up in Jordan.
Yes,
Did you go to high school here in the Houston area?
yes, I did, in
Where'd you go?
Clearbrook High School.
And what did you do after high school?
I joined the military.
And in what capacity did you join the military? What did you do?
I was in the military intelligence. I spoke the language, and I worked interrogation, and I analyzed intelligence documents.
And so what branch of the military did you join?
Army,
And what year was it that you joined?
2003.
2003?
Yes, when I signed with them. When I
And
signed up.
I assume because of the time frame here, you were deployed overseas.
Correct, yes.
Where were you deployed to?
I was deployed to Iraq.
And how many deployments did you have?
I had one deployment, ended with my injury, so,
And you said it ended with your injury, correct?
yes.
Okay, what happened in regard to your injury?
I was wounded by an IED, basically a bomb, and I got my right leg and left arm. I wasn't able to walk for some time, and I was medically discharged for, from the injuries.
And so you were hurt by an IED, in Iraq? Were you in a vehicle at the time?
Yes, I was in a Humvee, but the IED was really close, and it was big.
And you said you were medically discharged due to the injury, correct?
Yes.
Do you still suffer from injuries associated with that?
Yes, I still have shrapnels in my right leg. I have limitation of motion and weakness in the knee. Pain also.
And so what year was it that you were discharged from the military?
I was discharged at the end of 2006.
And what did you do after your discharge?
I went to the University of Houston and got my degree in computer science, software engineering.
And did you graduated and got your degree?
Yes.
What year was that?
I graduated in 2012, December 2012.
Now, the defendant in this case, Leon Jacob, do you know who that is?
Yes.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's in Denver.
Okay, could you just identify him by something that he's wearing today?
A suit with blue and lines of tie.
May the record reflect the witness identify the defendant?
The record will so reflect.
Could you tell us how you came into contact with Mr. Jacob initially?
I was called by a friend of a friend, and her name is Laura. We met before briefly, but my friend apparently told her about my history in the military, and basically told her that I'm his best friend. So the day that...
Okay, let me stop you there. Okay.
Okay.
The person that you're talking about, when you say if Laura's a friend of a friend, what friend is it that you're talking about?
His name is Kenneth.
Okay, and how do you know Kenneth, or how did you know Kenneth?
Kenneth was a friend that I met at University of Houston, and we were best friends, and he was he was a lot older than me, but we kind of clicked at the university, and ever since we've been, hanging out. And
Was he a student at the same time you were?
no, he was working there.
Okay, he worked at the university.
Yes.
Okay. So from the time that you were at the university through the time that you graduated and up until last year, you two remained friends?
Yes, till he actually passed away.
Were the two of you ever living together? Was there ever a roommate arrangement?
Whenever I was at University of Houston, he actually stayed with me for 2 months. Yeah.
And you mentioned something a moment ago, and I wanted to make sure that everybody heard it. You said he passed away.
Yes. The night before Laura contacted me, he had a stroke and passed away. And I had his stuff, his phone. And whenever Laura called him, I answered. I wanted to tell her what happened, and then she told me about, the situation.
Did you say something?
Objection, yes, Your Honor, I apologize.
Not to repeat what somebody else tells you, okay?
Sure.
Now, you mentioned before that you had met Laura on a prior occasion.
Yes.
Was that through Kenneth?
Yes.
Were you friends with Laura?
I knew her, but I wasn't, at that time I wasn't really, I keep to myself usually, so I did not know her as a friend yet, so.
You had just met her before?
Yes.
Okay. And when you said a moment ago, when the day before Laura contacted you, Kenneth passed away. When she actually contacted you, she was actually calling to speak to Kenneth, is that right?
Yes.
So she called Kenneth's phone?
Yes.
That you had?
Yes.
Okay. And you answered the phone, and the two of you had a discussion?
Correct.
Okay. And was that discussion, some of that discussion regarding the defendant in this case?
Correct.
Okay. And what did you tell Laura in relation to the defendant?
I told her to that he will expect a call from me, and basically to set up a meeting after. So I'm not supposed to say what she told me, right?
Yeah, you can't talk about anything that she told you. It's only
Right.
what you told her, okay?
Okay, so after I was aware of the situation, I told her that I would call him and to give me his number so I can actually. I really wanted to, to get a look at how serious it is, and if if I actually should worry, and the only way I can do it is by talking to the defendant.
Okay, so you at this point tell Laura to tell the defendant that I'm going to call him.
Yes.
And just so we're clear, you did that for the reason of trying to figure out exactly how serious and what the situation was.
Correct.
Did you actually call the defendant?
I did.
Okay. And did you call him from your cell phone, a home phone?
I used an app called Fake ID, and it basically masks my number. And I called them, and I set up a meeting at the Fresco.
I'm sorry, Del Frisco's?
Yes.
Okay, so you spoke to him on the phone?
Correct, yes.
And just so we're clear, you used some apparatus by which the number that he would show up on his phone would not be your true number?
Yes.
And did that meeting take place?
Yes, it did.
Do you recall about what time of the month, this is obviously early last year, but what day or what time of the month this was?
I don't remember the exact date, but I know at the beginning of February sometime.
Sometime at the beginning of February 2017?
Yes.
And when you met with the defendant, who was at that meeting?
It was just Leon, Jacob, and I.
And what was discussed at that meeting?
Basically, he actually at first, Leon Jacob was more of trying to be vague about what he wanted. He did actually, first thing he did is offer to buy me a drink. I asked for a Coke, and I played basically, like what Hollywood would show of a mercenary or a hitman, which is basically stayed quiet, listened, and the more he talked, the more he started to open up, and he told me that basically so I can't say what he told me, or since he's the defendant, I can, okay. He told me that basically that his ex has an assault case on him, and that it's destroying his life, and that he wants me to actually kidnap her, basically to convince her that to drop it, and as long as he can talk to her, because she loves him and he loves her, she would actually change her mind. So he wants to be there at the where I kidnap her, and if it doesn't work, he actually wanted me to make her disappear, in in a way.
And what did you, when he said make her disappear, what did you take that to mean?
Basically he wanted her gone, like that,
That was your impression of what he wanted for
Yes.
her? Okay. Did he bring anything with him to that first meeting to let you know that he was serious about what
Yes.
he wanted?
Whenever I made,
Let me stop you, Mr. Azzeh. Let me ask the question first and wait till I'm done with the question. I know you may want to answer the question because you think you know what I'm going to ask, but just because she's typing everything,
Oh,
make
sorry
sure I
about
finish
that.
the question first before you answer, okay?
okay.
Okay? Okay. And my question was, did he bring anything with you to show that he was serious about what he wanted with Megan?
Yeah.
Did you bring anything with him?
Sorry, with him. Yes, sir.
Yes, he did. On the phone call, I asked him to bring 2,500 to see how serious he is, and if he did, then I actually figured he's really serious.
And he brought that money?
Yes,
And did he give it to you that night?
yes.
When the first meeting with the defendant ended, what was the plan going forward from there?
The plan for me was to actually find out a way to protect Megan and to see how I can approach this the best way I could, and to guarantee that I keep Megan out of his reach.
Okay, let me stop you there. Did you know who Megan was?
No.
What information did you have on Megan at that time?
At that time, basically, before I met him, I didn't have except her name. Laura did mention that she worked at a hotel, but most of the information that I gathered to convince Lee and Jacob that I am someone that is capable of basically of being a mercenary, to convince him that I'm a mercenary. I actually gathered most of the information about him. And whenever I met with him, I gave him the information. But when it comes to Megan, I told him I will not share any information about Megan because you might just take it yourself or outsource it. It was a way to cover.
Yes, sir. So in regards to Megan, all you really knew at that point was her name
Yes,
and that she worked at a hotel.
yes. When I met with Leon Jacob, he showed me a picture and a license plate of her car.
Okay, so he showed you a picture and a license plate of her car.
He showed me a picture with him and her, and then another picture of her license plate of her car.
May I approach, Judge? Mr. Azzeh, I'm going to show you what's been marked here, State's Exhibit number 11. Tell me if you recognize that.
I actually cannot remember, but the license plate, but the car, yes.
Okay, the car here. Does this appear to be the picture that was sent to you by Leon Jacob?
No, it was actually more direct toward the back.
Okay, so this was a picture of you believed to be the same car,
Yes.
but it was just from a different angle.
Yes, and when I got that picture, I really didn't pay attention to it because my target was not Megan. My target was to protect Megan, so I didn't need information about her. Like I really didn't need to actually get her involved if I didn't have to.
Yes, sir. Okay. This time, Judge, we go to State's 11.
No objection, Your Honor.
State's 11 submitted.
Permission to publish, Judge?
You may.
All right, so Mr. Azzeh, you said this picture is very similar to the picture that was sent to you by the defendant regarding Megan's vehicle.
Yes.
Now, was the picture shown to you or was it sent to you?
I think I asked for a copy of it. I think just to convince him, but I cannot recall, to be honest, because it was not important to me, and I tried to ignore as much information so I can profile him.
Just try to answer the question. Was it
Cool.
sent to you?
I can't recall. I remember seeing it, but I can't recall if it was sent to me.
Okay. Did you and the defendant establish any type of way which you would communicate with each other that did not involve cell phones?
Yes, I set up an email and I told them to actually save emails as a draft. This way it wouldn't be sent. It's also a way to convince him that basically I know what I'm doing and to gain more of his trust.
Okay. So you would set up an email account to communicate. You would each log on, write what you had to write as a draft. It would never be sent to a third party. The other party could log on and read it as a draft, correct?
Yes,
So there would never be a record of it being sent to anyone.
yes,
Okay. And we've asked you for that email address, correct?
yes,
And you weren't really sure whether you could remember it. You can't really remember what it is, correct?
yes. I remember the username, but not password.
Now, you said going forward from there, after the first meeting, you were kind of trying to figure out what to do with the situation. What was the next step in your contact with the defendant?
I actually was profiling him. I needed to understand the threat. So I actually took a day or two, I believe, to actually think of my next step. And this is when he started calling Laura. So I called him, told him to back off from Laura, and that she's off limit, and that basically I will be in contact. At that point, I established that he has an obsessive personality. He likes to control things. So going forward.
Let me stop you there, okay?
Okay.
Because again, like I know you want to explain what happened, all right? But I'm gonna have to jump in and stop so everybody understands what the question is and what the answer is, okay?
Okay.
At the point that you were paid the first time, you were paid by the defendant. It was your impression that he wanted her out of the picture. It meant to you that ultimately that was up to and including having her killed, correct?
Yes.
Why didn't you contact the police?
I actually didn't think that the idea that I got about Leon Jacob is that he's a surgeon and he had resources. It'll be my word against his word, and I do not have connections. I also actually didn't know if if it would actually, if they would actually talk to him and alert him, like if I talked to a uniform. So I did not want to take the chance. The probability was not, there was actually a chance that this all can fail and he would actually do it himself or go for someone else.
And so, but you personally, was there any concerns you had about the officer not believing what you had to say?
Yes, I actually did because at the time I had a pending case, so.
Your pending case at the time was for what?
It was for a possession of stolen property.
And has that case been resolved?
Yes, it was, and I completed the probation time, and yeah, it's been resolved.
So you were on probation, but you've since completed that.
Yes.
And at the time, going back to January, February, March 2017, were you ever offered anything from either a police officer or my office in regards to your cooperation?
No.
Nobody ever told you your case will go away if you cooperate?
No. No. It was clear that that's not good.
And today, you have some pending charges, correct?
Yes, in Fort Bend.
Fort Bend County.
Yes.
Has anybody made any promises to you regarding those cases in exchange for your testimony today?
No.
Okay. We left off talking about the first meeting. If you can recall, when was the second time you communicated with the defendant?
It was, he had a court date coming up, and it was before the court date. I told him that basically I will kidnap, I kept on telling him that I have a team, so it was we are going to kidnap Megan, and we're going to have her at a hotel. But none of that was going to happen. I just wanted to get him to get through to the court date, and maybe after Megan shows up and testifies, maybe he would actually back off from killing her, and the issue would have been resolved for me. You know, there's no life-threatening situation at that moment. But that day, do you need to ask questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, sorry.
So, did you actually go through with that plan? And what I mean by that is, did you actually contact the defendant and tell him that you had kidnapped Megan?
Yes, I did. And I told him to come to a hotel, and when he came, I told him that it was all done, and I didn't want him to meet with her because he might lose his nerve, so she is leaving, and she's not going to show up to court. You know, we actually convinced her to leave, and that's what I told the defendant.
And did you ever kidnap Megan?
No.
Did you ever have any contact with Megan?
No.
And when you told the defendant that you had already kidnapped Megan, talked to her, and convinced her to leave, did it appear as though the defendant believed you?
Yes.
And during this time, did the defendant ever pay you any more money for your services?
The payments were small amounts, and it was in different times, and I cannot remember the exact times because money was not something that I was concerned with.
But he kept paying you. There was multiple payments, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that there was a court date coming up.
Yes.
And your hope was that when Megan showed up to it, maybe that would get him to back off.
Right.
Okay. What happened after that court date?
After that court date, I contacted the defendant to actually find out, like, if he is going to back up or anything like that. He was basically concerned because she showed up, and of course she was going to show up. I was expecting that. I told them we actually convinced her. I don't know what happened. She was about to leave. Leon Jacob told me that basically he heard from his lawyer or something like that she was going to leave, but that changed, which to me that was pure luck and basically made my story more believable for him.
Okay, so when she showed up, you told him, I don't know what happened. We got her. We told her to leave. She said she was going to leave. I don't know what went wrong.
Yes.
It just so happens that he thought that you were telling the truth, and he had heard somewhere else that somebody else had convinced her to stay.
Right.
And that was lucky for you because it made your story work.
Yes.
After that court date and after that conversation, what was the plan going forward from there?
At this point, he did not back off. I actually took another day or two to actually start thinking of what I'm going to be doing. And there was a stalking charge that was posted on his name. I was checking the public records just in case there's information, so I can actually keep my cover and convince him that I know everything. And I saw a charge of the stalking on his name.
You found online you found a record of him being charged with the felony offense of stalking.
Yes.
Okay. Did you call him to tell him that?
I called him, and I wanted, yes, to tell him, and he actually knew before. At this point, I had the idea that there's no way he's going to back off, and that is basically, it's actually escalating to, and it made him, even though there was consequences, even though there was cases, he still didn't back off. So at this point, I really took the threat very seriously.
Aside from the conversations about her being kidnapped, did he ever say to you during the course of this relationship, these several times that you either met in person or talked on the phone, did he ever say anything specific to you about what he wanted done with her?
Yes, he actually wanted her. He wanted to basically meet with her, talk to her, because she's going to be convinced. But if she's not, he wanted her gone, like dead gone. And I tried to convince him that, to keep him away, to see if he's actually going to push toward the death thing. And he actually pushed. He kept on going with it, even though I was giving him options, even though I wasn't acting on it, but I just wanted to see how far he would go. He kept on pushing toward the death, and like he wanted it to end if she's not going to take him back or drop the case.
So he was clear to you that if things weren't going his way, he wanted her gone, as in dead gone.
Yes.
And so after you said you called him, and one of the purposes, I guess, or maybe the sole purpose, was to alert him about the fact that he'd been charged with stalking. You said he already knew, correct?
Yes.
Okay. At any point during your relationship with the defendant, did you ever give him the name or suggest the name of Michael Kubosh to him?
Yes, I actually gave him the name of Michael Kubosh as a bail bond, and I unmasked my number because the name that Leon Jacob knew me by was Zach, and I talked to Kubosh before, and he told me about his connections. So I actually unmasked my number, hoping that Leon Jacob would actually talk to him, since I gave him the connection of Kubosh, and he's more credible than I am.
And so you mentioned before, the name that the defendant knew you as was Zach, correct?
Yes.
Is that a name you normally go by?
I go by Taz or Zach. Zach is actually a name that I used a little bit at U of H, and Laura knew me by that name, Zach.
Now, were you aware of the defendant ever being arrested on that stalking charge?
I know that he was bonded. He told me that he's going to court and he was bonded. I didn't know actually he was actually in jail. I remember that.
And in this time period, what type of communication were you having with the defendant? Were you calling him daily? Were you calling him a couple times a day? How was that going?
After I gave him Kubosh's number, I actually left him for 3 days so he can actually become obsessive and start looking for me, and so he can go talk to Kubosh. And then I called him, and nothing was happening, so I thought that did not work. So I wanted to get him to the stalking charge and see how basically at this point a stalking charge should scare him, but it didn't. And at this point, I started building more trust. I started calling him, and he started planning, like giving suggestions on how to kill. And I've seen basically he had no remorse. He was self-obsessed, and he really wanted it done.
Okay, so I want to kind of back up to the first plan where you said you had kidnapped Megan, and she showed up to the hearing, and after that, he was still convinced that you were who you said you were.
Yes.
So he believed that you actually, your impression was that he believed that you had actually kidnapped her and you told her to leave, but she didn't.
Yes.
Now, how was it over the next several days or weeks, how was it that you were able to convince him, and what were you telling him about the next step in the plan? So if that didn't work, what sort of things were you telling him around the time of the stalking charge about whether you would be able to do anything for him in regards to Megan?
At this point, I was giving information about him, but keeping Megan covered in a way that there's no information shared. So I kept on my cover, and my cover was also not to talk too much, so not to give information that is not necessary, and it always made him more it made him more convinced, and he also wanted to be more in control of the situation, which made his focus on me now. He wanted to actually, know me, control me, make sure that I do what it is that he actually wanted. At this point, whenever the stalking charge was coming up so he can go to court, I actually told him that killing her right now is going to come back at you. So I told him I can set her up with a felony. I can send my team, crash her car, plant drugs, and she can get arrested for it. And then she will not show up to the stalking, to the court that day, and I'll be dismissed. Based on the information of the dismissal, it was him telling me that his lawyer told him that if she doesn't show up, it'll be dismissed.
So you were convincing him that now's not the right time to kill her because you were just charged with stalking, and they're going to obviously come back and look at you first, right?
Yes, and showing him that I'm concerned about him is to build trust, and it works, and it worked actually.
And so then there was a plan. You suggested a plan to cause an accident with her vehicle, plant drugs in her car.
Counsel's testifying at this time.
That's the same.
Did you just mention another plan?
Yes.
About planting drugs in her car?
Yes.
Okay, and that involved a car crash, correct?
Yes, we crashed her car and planned drugs to it.
Did that ever happen?
No.
Okay. Did you ever tell him it happened, much like the last time where you said it had with the kidnapping?
No, I told him that my team was interrupted by cops and they were arrested, and I blamed him for it. His personality is he likes to show off, talk about himself, so I figured he would tell somebody that she would not show up. So I told him, who did you tell? My team is gone, they were arrested, and, I made it it sounds like a problem, like I'm pissed off. And at this point, I was actually planning to get hard evidence, so I can actually be able to go to the cops and it might be more believable.
Did it appear as though when you told him about this plan gone wrong a second time, did he appear to believe you that
Yes.
it didn't work out and your team had been arrested?
Yes, he did. He believed me.
Now, at any point around this time period were you contacted by an investigator from our office?
It was after the whole stalking situation happened a week, I think, or a week later. I was actually contacted by Mike and his partner. I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name.
Two investigators from the Harris County DA's office.
Yes.
Okay. And did you speak with them about what you knew?
At first, I got in the car and I wanted to see if they can take it over and they have enough information to know how serious it is. As soon as I got in the car, I figured that the reason they contacted me was because of Kubosh. So whenever I got in the car, it seemed like they didn't have the full idea of how dangerous it is. So I actually started talking.
I'm sorry, Counsel, you can slow down.
Yeah, sorry, it's hearsay and it's ass names.
I'll rephrase it. And so you said that you got in the car with them. Did you ultimately give a statement about what you knew in the situation as it had been for the last several weeks?
Yes.
During your course of your relationship with the defendant, did you ever obtain anything from him aside from cash?
Yes, after the stalking, case, I actually received 2 watches from him, and I was able to convince him to give me the receipts because I told him that I checked it out and it's fake. So he wanted to prove to me they're not. So I got the receipts, and that is hard evidence to me. At this point, I was actually planning to use it, but the detective approached me at the same time. So
And what did you do with the cash that the defendant had given you?
the cash was spent.
It was spent by you.
Yes,
The watches and the ring, what happened with those?
I gave them to the detective.
Have you been promised anything or offered anything in exchange for your testimony today regarding what you did with that money?
No.
And you've spoken with a lawyer about that, correct?
Yes.
And you mentioned that the watches and the ring you turned over to the investigators you spoke with.
Yes.
Now, after you were contacted by investigators from the DA's office, did you ever meet with any officers from the Houston Police Department?
I met with an undercover team, so we can actually talk and discuss what would we do moving forward.
And when you met with them, what was the plan going forward?
Basically, I'm supposed to introduce Javier, one of the detectives, to Leon and introduce him as another hitman, ex-military, and basically tell Jacob that I can't go forward with this anymore. But I'm giving him in the right hands, and I'm supposed to pass it over to the team, to the undercover team.
And so, did you agree to make the introduction between Officer Duran and the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall where that meeting took place?
Olive Garden on Kirby.
Now, up to this point, did you have any knowledge of a separate problem with the ex-husband of Valerie McDaniel?
There was problem mentioned about the ex-husband, but until the point of the meeting with the undercover team, it was not going toward killing Mac. It was more of a problem that they were complaining that he's being inconvenient to them.
And so the phone call that's placed to set up the meeting to the defendant was from you, correct?
Yes.
And were you present at the meeting the following day?
Yes, I was.
Where did that meeting take place?
Olive Garden.
Do you remember which one it was, where in town it is?
It's on 59 in Kirby, I believe.
And what was it that you were going to tell the defendant in regard to Officer Duran?
I was telling him that he was a friend. I knew him, and he's actually someone that will take care of, of basically the worst situations.
And who was present at that meeting that you had with
Valerie, me, Javier, and Leon Jacob.
So Valerie McDaniel, the defendant, the officer, Javier Duran, and you?
Yes, correct.
And when you made the introductions at the meeting, what did you say?
I actually don't remember the exact words, but it was mostly building trust between Leon Jacob and Javier. I remember making a joke about something that I would know about a friend. That tells Leon that I knew Javier, and I told him that he is the best and he will take care of everything.
So it sounds to me as though you're kind of passing the defendant off in terms of what he wants done to Javier.
Yes, correct.
And were you present for the entire meeting?
At some point at Olive Garden, I basically Javier wanted to talk to Valerie alone and Jacob alone, so we kind of split at that time. Whenever he wanted to talk to either.
Okay. And so, just so I'm clear, who leaves who at the table?
At the table, it was Valerie and Javier, and me and Leon Jacob, we went outside.
Permission to publish, Judge?
Publish what?
It's a video recording that was States 1, Judge.
States 1? You may.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
Does this appear to be the restaurant you had the meeting at? Ms.
Yes.
Ramsey? Does this appear to be you and the defendant outside speaking?
Yes, we were speaking at that time.
And do you recall anything about what the defendant was saying to you at this point, or what the conversation was about?
He was worked up because it was basically it was not resolved till now. And I was ensuring him that Javier that will get the job done. He's one of the best, and he was kind of worked up and pissed off that it didn't happen. Like I didn't get it done, and Megan's still alive.
And after this conversation outside the restaurant, do you go back inside?
Yes, we did.
Now, after that meeting, did you have any further contact with the defendant at all?
No, at this point, it was I handed her over to Javier and the team, and I did not need it to actually go on.
I'll pass it to the judge.
From the defense, please.
Thank you, Honor. Good afternoon. Do you prefer Moataz or do you prefer Zach?
Moataz.
Moataz? Hi, Moataz. Just got a couple of questions for you on cross-examination. Starting off with, you keep making a mention that Leon needed something to go to his lawyer. He had to show his lawyer. Do you know who that lawyer was by name by chance?
No, I do not.
Okay, but do you know that it was not me or it was not George? At that time, we were not his attorneys.
I believe it was a female because he kept on referring to her as her or she told me.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned earlier today that you received a $2,500 cash payment from Leon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall him ever giving you more money?
Yes.
Do you know how much money he did in fact give you?
I remember it was in total $9,980.
You said $9,998?
$80.
$80. Would you be surprised to hear that maybe it was closer to $15,000?
I'm not sure.
But he also gave you 2 Cartier watches, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall the value of those watches?
No, I do not. I did have receipts, and I was turned to the police. I just don't recall the exact
And then also
price.
he gave you a diamond ring, is that correct?
Yes.
But when the police first contacted you, you didn't reveal any of that to them, did you?
I gave it to them.
At the very first meeting, you revealed that you had 2 watches?
I did not have them with me at that time.
But when the police did first contact you, you only revealed $5,000 being given to you, is that correct?
At that time, I wasn't sure, and I explained that to the detective. And actually, I can't recall how I actually calculated the number 9,980, but this is where I got to whenever I told the detective. And the reason I remember is because keep up. Yeah.
Sorry. You came to that number after the fact, the 9,000 after the first meeting?
I tried, to recall exactly how much.
Excuse me, you cannot talk over each other. Let him finish before you speak, and you let him finish.
Before you speak, please. Let's continue.
So at the first meeting with the police, you revealed only $5,000 being given to you. Is that correct?
As I recall, that's what I told them, yes. And I did explain that I wasn't sure.
Yes or no answer will be fine. So if that first meeting was $5,000, at the second meeting, you clarified how much money was actually taken.
Yes.
And after that, then you revealed that you also had 2 watches. Is that correct?
It was the same meeting.
It was an in-person interview.
Yes.
But at that time, you did not reveal the ring, did you?
It was, I can't recall. I did give it to the cop. It was actually fake.
But would you be surprised to not give that ring back until the police came to question you about where the ring was?
No, I gave it to him. I mentioned it to him.
You did mention it to him.
Yes. I just told him it was fake and I can't recall where I put it.
So you'd be surprised if an officer said, I asked why you didn't explain these watches or the rings to me?
Can you slow down
Yes, I apologize.
and re-ask the question?
Yes. So you would be surprised if an officer did state that he asked you why you didn't reveal the ring to him when you turned over the watches?
Can you repeat the question?
Would you be surprised if an officer takes the stand today and testifies that he had to ask you about why you did not reveal the ring to him when you gave over the 2 watches?
Nothing surprised me in every situation, so no.
So you had to set this up, in your own words, to basically con Leon. You had to sell your personation as a hitman. Is that correct classification?
To Leon, yes.
And by doing that, you ever heard this app called Wicker?
Yes. It's a message app.
What is Wicker?
Wicker is a messaging service that delete the message instantly after it was sent.
So you would have no recollection or proof of the conversations that you actually had with Leon?
Yes.
And you also use apps to, you said, mask your phone number? Is that
Yes.
correct? So you really kind of went out of your way to make yourself anonymous, to not be traced back.
Yes. But I stayed in contact.
But you stayed in contact, but you wanted to make sure nothing could come back to you.
Based on his personality, he will come at me, he will actually stalk me, and he will find me if I give him any information.
So you actively made sure that you remained anonymous so nothing could come back to you. Is that correct?
So he cannot find me,
Is
yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Now, you said before also that Leon first approached you with the plan of getting a hold of Megan to take her to a hotel to have a conversation. Is that correct?
Yes.
You guys wanted to reconcile the relationship.
Yes.
And you told him that you went ahead and you've taken her, but you didn't want to go forward and have them meet.
Yes, I told him that I did have taken her and
Did you
talked to
ever
her.
tell Leon or make statements about how you had to rough her up a little bit? Did you have to hit her, threaten her?
I can't recall the exact words, but I said everything that I can to actually convince him that we actually did talk to her, yes.
So it's safe to assume that during this time period you were trying to sell this con, and that you would have used a statement saying that you had to hit her. She's hysterical, she doesn't want to talk to you right now, to make your persona be what it was.
No, I was actually focusing on protecting Megan, because in the first meeting, he did mention if it doesn't work out, when he talks to her, that he wants her gone.
Interesting that you would, in the interest of protecting Megan, but you went out of your way to make sure there was no record of any conversation. Is that correct?
Yes, because if I actually leave any evidence, he might suspect me.
It's correct. And you also wanted to make sure that all messages sent were deleted. Is that correct?
I do not recall that.
You use an app, Wicker, that deletes all text messages.
I honestly cannot recall that.
You also had a way of sending an email chain. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Where you would log into his email, compose a draft, and then delete it. Is that correct?
I gave him the email thing, but I never actually sent an email or put an email.
Email. You would log
Yeah,
in.
it was supposed to be to actually show that I know what I'm doing. Give him basically, it was a tool for him to actually believe that I'm a mercenary, a hitman, and I know what I'm doing. Yes.
You're going to actively sell this con. Is that correct?
It's actually not. Well, it is it was actually an operation to keep my cover. Yes. So if it was to keep a cover, it's called con. It is. Yes, that was actually
Actively sell the con.
to sell what he needs to believe. Yes.
And so throughout the entirety of selling this con, in order to protect Megan, in your own words, you made sure there was no trace of any conversation, and you never went to any kind of authority to try and help.
The only evidence that I was able to gather that might be concrete is the payment of watches and the ring. That's it.
Cash, which you were happy to go off and spend.
I actually did not think it could be actually proved. So yes, I did not care about that. No,
But you were just happy to go and spend the money that you were spending.
I did spend it. Yes.
And throughout your entire conversation with Leon, it was always to go forward and make her not be able to testify in court. Is that correct?
Yes.
It was to try and reconcile the relationship or not be able to appear in court.
No, he wanted her dead.
You went through to say that his original plan was to go and kidnap her and get her back to Pittsburgh.
And that if it doesn't work, he wanted her back with him. He believed that she loves him and she cannot live without him, but if he talked to her, she is actually going to be convinced that she's going to actually remember and get back with him. But if that doesn't work, he wanted her dead, yes.
And so it was you that came up with the plan then to stage this car accident, did you not?
Yes, it would actually, to actually tell him that it would actually be staged and show them that I'm concerned about him so he can give me more trust, yes.
And you also wanted to plant drugs in her car in case that didn't work to get her arrested, is that correct?
It's the same plan. I'm sorry, I don't get the
You
question.
wanted to crash the car with drugs in her car.
The plan that I explained to him is that I would actually crash the car and plant the drugs so she can be arrested.
And then you said today that his actual plan that he wanted was to kill Megan. That's your words?
He's always been on the track of actually killing Megan if it doesn't go his way.
Did he ever actually physically say, I want her dead?
Yes, he actually even proposed a way to kill her, potassium chloride to the heart. It was untraceable based on his words.
In your statement to the police, why didn't you reveal that?
I did. I told him he actually suggested to actually how to actually kill her, yes.
So if we were to play your statement today in open court, the recorded statement by the police officers, we're going to hear you tell the officers that exact statement.
I'm not sure if they were recording at the time, but they did tell them, yes. I informed them about the whole profile about...
You're talking over him.
I apologize, Your Honor.
Ask the
Question, please.
Again, this is another convenient allegation that he wanted somebody dead, but yet you went through and deleted any kind of...
Pick the argumentative judge.
It's cross-examination, Your Honor.
Ask the question, please.
So again, it's convenient, would you say, that there is, again, no proof that he wanted to said to you, that he ever said to you he wants her dead?
It was in Olive Garden. I'm not sure if that counts, but he did mention that he wanted them both dead at Olive Garden, yes.
He wanted to hire somebody to kill her at Olive Garden.
He actually, yes, he always mentioned to me that he wanted her dead, yes.
You also testified today, too, that it was never Leon who expressed any concern towards Mac, is that correct? He never brought up he wanted him dead?
Both did. Leon said that Mac did not allow Valerie's daughter to visit because of his court case.
Right, but he never went through and said he wanted Mac McDaniel dead, did he?
He did in the phone call. He said,
Was that phone call recorded?
I believe so, yes.
And he said the exact words. Was this phone call to you?
At that time, I was I called him so I can actually set up the Olive Garden thing, and he said that I need to take care of the second thing. At this point, I asked him what second thing. He said, I need you to take care of Mac.
But he didn't say, I need Mac dead. He just said, I need him taken care of.
Yes.
At that point in time, you never spoke before about Mac or what he would want to have happen to Mac, did you?
No, but when he said that he wanted it also taken care, since we spoke about Megan, and he wanted her killed, then I actually made the relation, yes.
It's a misstatement because his original plan with Megan... Excuse me, I'm very sorry. His original statement was to get Megan to Pittsburgh, and after that, it was to get her in trouble.
His original statement was for him to actually meet with her so he can get her back, and if it doesn't work, he wants her dead. Pittsburgh is something that I told him that I did.
So, with that knowledge, why did you not inform the police on your statement to them that that's what he said?
I did inform the police everything that happened as the first meeting happened between me and the detective. I did explain to the police everything as fast as I can so they can prepare and move in, because at that time Leon Jacob was becoming more restless.
Did you ever get in contact with Mac McDaniel?
I can't recall that. No, I don't think so.
Did you ever hang out with or associate with Leon and Valerie McDaniel in like a public setting? Would you guys go into like pool together?
Slick Willies, yes.
Did you ever have a conversation with Valerie outside of Leon's presence?
Can you repeat the question?
Did you ever have a conversation with Valerie outside of Leon's presence?
Object to relevance, Judge.
It's going into any kind of other motive that Leon was not privy to, that personal knowledge of any other fact towards what he's testified to today.
It's overruled, you can answer it.
I really don't understand the question. You need to slow down. I apologize for that, but
Did you ever have a conversation with Valerie McDaniel where Leon was not present?
I met with them always together. We had conversations. Usually, Jacob would actually take me outside.
All he did was ask you if you ever had a conversation with her. Yes or no?
Alone? No. I don't recall that, no.
Did you guys ever talk on the phone? You and Valerie?
I believe I did, yes.
Was Leon on a three-way call?
I believe he was there. They were always together whenever they talked to me about anything.
But you would have a conversation over the phone with Valerie, not with Leon?
With, yes, Valerie was actually there with Leon, yes.
So then you did have conversations with Valerie without Leon being present?
He was next to her. So no, I guess.
Now, you did mention today, earlier, that you just finished probation for a case out of Harris County,
Yes.
and you said that that was for possession of stolen goods. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's false, though, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Possession of stolen goods, was it?
What was it
It
then?
was a theft charge, was it not?
The name of the case is, I think, is theft. Yeah, I believe it was theft. I'm not a lawyer, so I just know that the cause was possession of stolen property. Yes.
So you did enter a plea then of guilty to a theft case?
Yes, I did.
And you also mentioned you currently have a case pending out of Fort Bend County, is that correct?
Yes.
What is that case for?
For possession of controlled substance, evading arrest, and burglary of a home. Yes.
And it's your testimony today that you don't have any kind of deal worked out with Harris County for your testimony today, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any kind of deal worked out with Fort Bend?
No.
And you believe that?
Yes.
You believe that they have not been any kind of communication? To kind of
Object argumentative, Judge. What he believes about communication between DA's offices, he answered the
It's
question.
speculative, and he answered the question already. He said no.
Yes, sir. Do you have any hope that testifying today will benefit your Fort Bend County case?
No.
Did you ever have a conversation with Leon expressing Megan's desire to go back to Pittsburgh?
I did tell him, yes, she was convinced to go to Pittsburgh, yes.
That she wanted to go to Pittsburgh?
That I convinced her to go to Pittsburgh.
But all that she needed was money?
I'm sorry, what?
That she wanted to go to Pittsburgh, but she needed more money to go to Pittsburgh?
I don't recall.
Did you ever tell Leon or inform Leon that you were in the process of buying plane tickets to get her to go to Pittsburgh because she wanted to leave?
Yes, I did say that. I remember that now.
In fact, you even had hired a person or a guy of yours to get on a plane to follow her to Pittsburgh. Is that not correct?
I did say that, yes. I told him that my team is actually going to make sure she left to Pittsburgh so he can back off, and if she shows up to court, then it's all clear.
Okay, so Leon was left under the impression that Megan wanted to go to Pittsburgh.
At this point, I convinced him that, yes.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
From the state, please.
Nothing further, Judge.
To be excused.
Yes, sir.
To be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Are we still holding on 12:15, we think?
It's around, and that's what Derek is dealing with right now, so you're on.
I'm saying,
Derek is outside right now with the food right now.
Okay, I think lunch is available, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a short recess for lunch. You're not to discuss the case at any time amongst yourselves until you're actually in deliberations, so bear that in mind. And we'll be in recess till you finish your lunch, and we'll get back started then. Thank you.